Hello everybody and welcome to part 2. We're going to discuss a few different things in this video. We're going to talk more about calling. I'm also going to show you the pistol that I'm going to be using this year. But I also want Kelsey to talk to us a little bit more in this video too. I want her to be a part of this and share the stuff that she considers to be important to her. So Kelsey, you go ahead and you take it away.
A Triceratops' predator is a T-Rex, but a Triceratops can crush a T-Rex with its horns, and it can kill the T-Rex in its torso.
Wow.
Imagine that happening on Earth. But they're extinct though. But imagine...
So there's no tags for dinosaurs? You can't shoot a dinosaur in Kentucky?
You can't do that because they're extinct.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, I was hoping to get one on the wall, but looks like that's not going to happen, is it?
It's not going to happen because they're extinct.
Okay, so any other fun facts about dinosaurs?
Did you know an Ankylosaurus has a tail that has like it's kind of like a hammer-shaped tail that it can like crush stuff with.
Wow, that's pretty cool, ain't it?
Yeah.
So what I got here is a 1911. This is a Rock Island. And you want to see if it's empty. No magazines in it. This is a 1911 Tactical 2. They make a couple different versions of this gun. The reason why I wanted this one in particular is if you look at it, it has fiber optic sights. And you can see there on the front. Sorry I'm pointing at the camera, but I just wanted you to have a good view of it. And it has two white dots in the back here. This gun comes fully equipped with about anything you can imagine on a 1911 that you would want. It has an adjustable Novak style rear sight that is adjustable somewhat. It has a tactical thumb safety. It's also ambidextrous, which means there's one on the right and the left side. This has your pretty standard commander hammer in the back. This has, what's really I like about this gun, is the beaver tail on it. These beaver tail designs are only going to be found on a high-end pistol like an Ed Brown or a Wilson Combat. The reason why is because the contour of this beaver tail makes it extremely comfortable to carry. It also comes standard with these G10 grips, and they are made almost a lot like your tactical grips that you see from Wilson Combat, Ed Brown, Nighthawk. It's got a really nice trigger on it. It does look to be adjustable, but I'm not touching it. It's really good for me. I left the full-length guide rod inside this pistol, and I put a Wilson Combat spring in it as well as a stainless steel follower. And the reason why I did that is I already had the part, and this is a stainless steel rod that's inside of here. Now this gun is actually made of tempered carbon steel, all steel construction, just like the old ones. The release here is extended a little bit, so it's easy to push through there. But what really caught my attention on all these 1911s that you get, usually you have to be the one to put the mag well in it. Well, this came with a mag well, which basically means that this is contoured and beveled so that when you go to reload it, you don't have to really think about it. It goes right in, doesn't have any problems. If you know anything about pistols, the ejection port has been lowered and flared, which means all of your high-end 1911s have this, and the reason why it's done is because it keeps your rounds from hanging up, so you're not going to have any issues. And I always, every 1911 I always buy Wilson Combat. These are 47Ds. These are the stainless steel. They still sell them all day long. These are the best magazines that money can buy. You can buy them at Academy. You can buy them online. Some retail stores, I have seen them, not in Walmart's, but I have seen them in other retail stores like Bass Pro Shops and stuff. But this is the 8-round. 47Ds have been around a long time. They're really dependable. Of course, it came with a magazine And it does work pretty good, but you just can't go wrong with Wilson Combat. I want my stuff to be really good. So that's basically the pistol. It's a really nice one, very, very accurate. If you go look at the reviews, these pistols are priced very, very reasonable. I think I may have gave just a hair over maybe $600 out the door, and this price still holds true to this gun. So the type of ammunition that I'm using, that I've been using for a little while now, is made by Sierra, and these are 185 grain hollow jack point hollow points. And I'll show what I mean. It actually has copper on the outside of it. However, on the inside you can see where the lead has been exposed, and that's so it will have a proper engagement and open up correctly. I have had to shoot some small game animals with this, possums and stuff like that, and it really is effective. So now that you know what pistol I'm carrying, I've had that pistol, I would say, a little over a year now, and it's really accurate. Okay, so onward to the rest of my gear. I'm gonna go ahead and show you this real quick just because I got it right here. I carry 2 knives with me. This is one my dad actually gave me. So as a hunter, you kind of have some sentimental stuff, and this is one of them I don't want to go anywhere without, just because he gave it to me and it's kind of an irreplaceable thing. I have yet to see another one. I'm sure they're probably out there, but this is just a skin knife, and it's real thick, as you can see, and all of this comes apart where you can clean it, and that's what I really like, because a lot of these knives get bloodied. The main reason for this one is when I want to skin the hide out, or if I want to be really careful around the underside of the white-tailed deer. Everybody has known about that pop in the gut, and it's not fun, and my very first one I did that, so I never forgot it.
I wonder what happens if you throw it at a groundhog. It probably will knock off its head to its death.
It might. I don't know. I've never tried. So the next knife, I found this out in the last, not the last video, but the one before this series. I mentioned about Greg Ovens, and he's the one that kind of brought this knife to my attention, so I went ahead and ordered one. This is called they're made by a company in Spain, and this one's a Joker, and this one is a really nice knife. This one is, I know I'm going to mess this up. I say it's a Tiger, but it may be totally wrong. The type of knife this is. It's spelled T-I-G-R-E. It may be something foreign, and maybe I just can't talk right. But anyway, this is what it looks like, and it is a super nice knife. Extremely sharp. It's made in Spain, and the handle here is really made good. And this is Red Stag. You can't get that in the United States. That's something that it's really well balanced, and I want to try to use it this year for the butchering process. And it's also a bushcraft knife. So if you know anything about bushcraft, it's basically survival, anything outdoors. And this right here is just perfect for what I'm going to need it for.
And perfect for killing bears with.
Well, hopefully I don't have to use it on a bear, but I'd say it's pretty effective. The next thing I like to talk about, being as I talked about scents in the last one, there's only a couple more I use. This is just a scent killer. You can find these at Walmart pretty cheap. And then I use Wildlife Research Cedar, and that's just a masking. I usually just put that on before I go into the woods. I don't try to get real crazy about it. I used to be real finicky about scent control, but I finally just kind of learned that the wind has to be in your favor regardless. And but I still try to do a few precautionary things. The only other thing that I have is like an emergency survival blanket. You never know if you get too wet and you can't warm up. I have a rain poncho. Now this is Hunter Orange for a reason, because this is going to be during the modern gun season. I also have stuff in here to build a fire with. I have a lighter. I have a magnesium fire starter. If you don't know what that is, it's basically a block of magnesium, and you just shave it off with the kit, how it comes. I put mine on a lanyard, so you can kind of see how this is. So basically you got a block of magnesium, it's this right here. You have a ferro rod that's actually glued into it, and it comes with a piece of saw blade. And that saw blade, you basically just trim off your pieces and you hit the back side of it. And basically what that does is that's supposed to start a fire. And magnesium will not catch fire in a full block like this. But when you shave it off and put it on your kindling or whatever, when you start the fire, it's going to catch fire to that magnesium and burn it. So it's going to give you a better chance. Now, something I learned from Greg Ovens, and I just so happen to have this. This is milkweed seeds and the silk, because I've seen the guys on the Hunting Public and other people talk about using these for wind direction. Well, that's really good. It's also really good for starting fires. Anything like this will get a fire going immediately. And once I've seen that done, Greg showed that on his video, I just kind of put it in my bag anyway, because, and keep a lighter. I always try to keep a lighter on me. That way I don't have to worry about, you know, the magnesium or anything at the time. You know, this is just something that's really inexpensive and is guaranteed to work. I keep a knife sharpener. Now, this is not how I typically sharpen my knives. I usually do those at home. But when you're out in the field, I just get, you know, the coarse here. This is made by Smith's, and it's got a fine, and basically it's just enough to put an edge back on it. I have a pair of shears. I always got to go to the woods with these, and the reason why is because you never know when there's going to be a branch or something in your way that you didn't catch when you set up your blind, or even a tree stand or whatever you're going to do. The next item, this is another thing that I've seen from Greg Ovens' channel, and this is it's an Olfa knife. All this is a razor knife, and it comes out, and he actually used this to cut up deer with it on one of his videos. So I thought that was pretty neat. You know, I've used these for years at work, but never thought about, and these are very, very sharp. So if you're in a bind, and for whatever reason, if I left one of my knives, I'm going to try to carry this on me. I usually try to keep my knives with me, but I always have a backup. You can throw these blades away, get your brand new one. But these are really, really sharp, and they're going to do the job. So I went ahead and put that as a backup. I also keep a little bit of medicine, stuff for headaches and stuff like that. But I also have a first aid kit that I'll take with me. I want to make sure that, you know, I'm prepared in the field. Anything could happen. Okay, so that's pretty much the gear I keep as far as the hunting part goes. I also keep some gloves in there. This is a new addition that I literally have not had a lot of time to test out. But this is pretty neat. This right here is a telescopic lens that fits on my phone, because that's where all my videos come from, is from my iPhone. This turns your iPhone into a telescopic camera. This adapter clips onto your phone, and you'll see it has a couple holes here, and this piece threads on just like this right here. It threads on, and that piece that you see that looks like an L, your phone fits in there. So I'm going to show you my setup and how this works. Okay, so here's my camera setup. Basically, I painted this bottomland. It's a really heavy built camera stand, and so all I have to do is take this part that holds the phone that I'm actually using for the camera video that I'm making right now, and you just put this piece on here like this. If I can get it on there. Takes a little bit to get started. Okay, there we go. So you get the idea. Well, your phone's going to be attached into here, and this screws up, puts tension on it, and inside there is your lens. Right up here is a focus. So this is just like a high-end camera, and you can point in any direction that you want to. Of course, wind does affect it a little bit, but you know, I've took and experimented with it, and hopefully we have some good footage. So the only other thing that I have in my gear is this right here, and this is a headlamp. It's pretty bright, as you can see. It's got a couple of different features. Another thing that I like to carry in the woods with me is this type of light here. What this basically does, if you're in trouble, this is a strobing light. So if you're injured, this is really going to draw attention to your area, and maybe if something, if you're in bad shape where you can't be able to move or something, this will draw enough attention where maybe somebody can find you. But the best thing to do is to let a lot of people know where you're going to be, and that's going to help you out a whole lot. I want to cover my calling, and that's going to be kind of the wrap of this. And so what I want to show you first of all is I've showed you the calls. I didn't really go into depth on what I do when I use them. So basically, there's so many different scenarios that I'm thinking of in my head right now that throughout the years, I had deer to come in close, but it really wasn't what I wanted, because you're trying to attract them to a potential place where you're going to be able to harvest that deer. Sometimes they're going to come downwind of you. And so the calling tactics changed dramatically throughout the years. What I found is, more than anything, that the more calling that you do, usually the more negative effects happens afterwards. Like, for example, if you continue to keep blind calling all day long and you're in the same spot, eventually some deer are going to start getting suspicious, because if you don't have a decoy or something out there that makes them see that deer that's making that noise, they're going to get really suspicious and they're going to avoid that area. Now, not in all areas are the same. I've heard people say out west, I've never been out there, but they said out west you can go out there and there'll be 10 different deer coming to calling all day long. But you got to also understand the population densities of those areas of whitetail bucks, and maybe the doe ratio is a little bit off, so they're having to really compete for a doe that year. In Kentucky, generally, what I've seen hunting throughout the whole entire area that I have been in, and even in different counties, it seems to be that different areas happen to have just patchy numbers of deer, and each individual area acts differently. For example, where I'm hunting at this year, they seem to be more responsive to calls than the place I was before. And the other places I've been out of the county, they've been about like the places I've been, the last couple of years. So here's what I try to do, rule of thumb. I always start out slow. If there's a doe in the area and I want to see how she reacts to another doe, I'd basically just hit a doe call. And that's it. I got to thinking about how many times I've actually heard a deer in the woods, and it's next to hardly any. I've heard them before, but usually it's real quick like that, and you may not hear nothing else the rest of the day. I have also been in situations where on a foggy morning, I could hear this all the way up and down the ridge. And it was a deer walking around. I really thought it was another hunter, but it wasn't. It was a buck that was probably chasing after a doe or getting excited because he was on a trail of a doe. And only a couple of times have I heard a fawn. And usually it goes like this. And that's it. And then you might hear, 30 minutes or an hour later, and that's that doe answering that fawn sound over here. So if you don't hear deer call that often, why is it that hunters spend so much money on deer calls, especially during the rut? Because in my opinion, even though that the deer that you're hunting, you may not hear, for all you know, before you got there, it was a vocal party for an hour. And then nobody has nothing else to say, because they have the pecking order and the rut figured out, and they're just trying to take advantage of opportunities. They know each deer, or if there's an intruder in the area. I always try to come across the deer as I'm an intruder, as I'm another deer passing through that's not supposed to be there because he hasn't been ran off yet. So how do I do that? Well, I just basically start with a doe call, and it could just be random, one note, and I'm immediately going to follow up with a buck call. And I want it to kind of sound desperate. And I'll maybe stop for 30 minutes.
It's like pranking a deer.
Yeah, exactly. You're tricking these animals into believing there's something there that's not. So then, if nothing happens, I may do the exact same sequence an hour or two later. I don't try to get it too close together. And then, if I start seeing deer move around, say I see a buck in the distance, but I can't tell what he is. Immediately after that, I want to do this. Now, if you notice, that sounded a lot deeper. That's supposed to basically let you know there's a mature buck going, hey, what are you doing? And after that point, if I start seeing the deer interested and they're trying to circle around the field or where, you know, the hillside or wherever you're at to try to get a better look without you knowing, immediately, if they're coming around and I can tell there's a good deer here, the first thing I want to do is pick this up. I just gave them a scenario. That scenario was there's a doe in the area. A buck has been trying to vocalize with her. He's not getting nowhere. A mature buck heard him because he's been doing it for so long. And now there's going to be a fight. But before I rattle those horns like you've seen on TV 100 times, they'll do that and start clashing. There's something that I do that's so realistic that it's worked every time that I've done it. Now, that doesn't mean a deer's going to come in running to you when you start rattling. That stuff you see on TV does not always happen that way. They're trying to edit it, trying to entertain you. Sometimes it does. I've had that happen last year. I had one come straight in after I just picked up the antlers, tingle on them a little bit to see what's going to happen. But I always do this one thing that I just told you about in the other video. That's a snort wings. So, right after that scenario picked up, then this young buck is going to contact this other buck and say, I'm over here. Basically saying like he's not going to stand down. And you see how it's a little bit more aggressive. Then I do this. Now why did I do that second one? The second one, that's a deer telling another deer, get out of here. I don't want nothing to do with you. You need to leave. So at that point in time, I'm going to make a really aggressive, this is only if in my mind I've decided I'm going to rattle. I'm going to go straight to the next level. I'm not going to give it any time for any deer, because when fights happen and you've actually heard them out there in the wild, they're real fast and they're over just as fast as they happen. And they basically go something like this. Now I just did 2 of those. Why did I do that? Because that just told you there's 2 deer and they did the exact same thing. They both understand each other and both of those deer are willing to fight over this doe. So then, if you're sitting in a ground blind, that's when you need to start making it sound like they're stepping off. That way, and then the first thing that you never want to do is, I've heard so many people do this, I've done it myself and I've had to learn, is they'll start. Deer don't do that. If you listen to deer, they do not do that. I've done it before, and yeah, you might get one interested, but most of the time they're just going to go downwind, they're going to catch your wind, they're going to get out of there. Now, it's what they're going to try to do regardless. So you try to pick yourself a spot that when they go downwind, trying to hear this calling going on and this commotion.
Are those real deer antlers just painted in black?
I'm glad you brought this up. These are Illusion System, which is the same one as the Grunt. So this is Illusion System. These are not real antlers. These are synthetic material made to sound like real antlers. What you want to do is when you go into a rattling sequence, they always start off with a hard smack. That's them making contact, and they really don't break off until the fight's over, most of the time. Now, you can do it any way you want to. I've seen people thrashing trees down and everything. You can make noise, but you have to keep in mind that if you make too much noise and you do it for very long, they're going to just get right downwind of you and they're going to smell you and they're going to take off before you know what's going on. So remember, it happens fast and it breaks fast. So you want to put the positive contact. And what you want to do is you want to put constant pressure on it. And you're tingling that rack like they're pushing each other. Then you go down to the ground, you make your sound, and as you come up, you do that aggressive thing, you lock again. Go back down to the ground, and basically when you go to pull off, make sure that you got them really tight and you break them off. What that does is that signals that deer's got a lot of pressure, because they're going to have a lot more pressure than my hands can put on there. As I break off from that, it's going to sound like a clean break, but something that I do that I didn't do because I was trying to demonstrate the rack is I'm going to have a grunt tube in my mouth or close to it. And the best thing to do is as you go down to the ground, just hit a grunt call. And you want to drag it out because you got to remember, you're trying to signal that these deer are in distress. So every time I go down, I'm making a noise, I'm coming back up. Now, after the break contact, when you see a buck is really interested in coming down there, this is something you've heard about the roar. This is the only time the roar ever comes in my opinion, it's the only time that the roar comes in that you're going to need to use it. The roar is something that you use to signal that a deer has had all he can take and he's trying to run off another deer. And that's it. The only other time that a roar even makes sense is if another deer is killing another deer. Literally, they only make that noise when they are in full stress situation or they're dying. So while you're rattling, if you got a buddy going, then you're going to have one coming in really aggressive, because that tells the other deer while they're fighting, this other one's winning to the point it's almost about to take the other one's life. I don't try to get that aggressive when I'm rattling. That last sequence that I showed you is probably the most I want to do. Now here's the important part. After I do that, I'm not going to do that again for the rest of the whole day. Why is that? Well, because if you keep rattling and keep giving away your position, the deer's going to see it, they're going to smell it, they're going to come downwind, and I've never heard more than one deer fight in a whole day. Now, I'm not saying that that doesn't happen somewhere else, but typically it's so rare that anybody ever hears it, you're not going to really go into that every single time it has success anyway. It's just kind of a thing that once you see deer moving, you're trying to bring them to your position and close it. That's basically what's going to happen. So that's going to be pretty much the segment of this video, except for Kelsey's got another thing she's wanting to show you, and we're going to end this segment. So take it away.
Okay, so I have a flashlight, and you could use this for finding bugs with, like if it at night when it's dark and you can see many different kinds of bugs with this thing. And I also got a butterfly net. When you go outside and stuff, you can catch butterflies with this net, and you can also catch other things with this net too, but not like a whale with this thing. You can't catch a whale because it's too big for this thing, but you can catch like a mouse or something. It has to be like a littler than this size.
Okay.
And also, I got some binoculars. I got this one from the Coyote Pearson pack. You can buy those like maybe on Amazon, and you can do that, and like
you can see things far off, kind of like I do when I go scouting, right? You can scout for bugs and birds.
Yeah, and this is a Nerf gun, but you can shoot a coyote with this thing, and don't shoot yourself, because
or your dad, you know.
Right, I shoot myself in my eye one day, and that was a disaster.
Yeah, that wasn't good, was it? Yeah, that Nerf thing to the eye, we kind of learned that lesson real quick.
Right. But now I don't do that anymore. I can use this to go hunting with when I get better and stuff.
Sure.
So, I don't think I have bullets in here.
Well, let's check. You know, we always gotta be
I don't have no bullets in here. So I'm going to find some bullets like around the house so that I can shoot like a coyote or like a tough animal. I don't think a bear. I have to use. My dad has to use a knife to do that thing, but
Well, that's the second time that the knife has been brought up with a bear, so we'll see, I guess.
yeah.
So that is going to be this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I did it in 2 parts because there was a lot of stuff to cover and nobody likes watching a 1-hour video. So I try to break it up in a couple segments. Like I said, hopefully this weekend you get the story about the hunt from last year and why it was so important to me and to Gavin especially. We'll kind of get more into that, but I hope you enjoyed this segment and look forward to seeing you next time.